most important things that we provide right now is transparency to the community, as many answers as we can provide. I'll start with this morning. Early this morning at 1:33 a.m., officers were called to the 1800 block of 5th Avenue West regarding a shooting that had just occurred. The complainant reported that his son, 32-year-old Anthony Robinson, had just fired gunshots into the front of the complainant's home. The complainant also provided a description of the vehicle that Mr. Robinson was fleeing in. Subsequent investigation revealed multiple bullet holes into the front of the home, including near where a child was sleeping inside. Responding Palmetto police officers spotted the suspect and the vehicle described to us leaving the area and attempted to stop it. Mr. Robinson refused to stop and officers pursued him. Mr. Robinson eventually lost control of his vehicle and crashed at Bayshore Road and 8th Avenue West. Mr. Robinson fled from his vehicle with a handgun in his hand into the Memphis cemetery. Palmetto police officers chased him into the cemetery to take him into custody. Once they entered the cemetery, a shooting occurred. Officers and responding deputies from the Manatee County Sheriff's Office provided first aid to Mr. Robinson until EMS arrived and transported him to Blake Medical Center. Unfortunately, Mr. Robinson died at the hospital. Per agency policy, I've asked the Florida Department of Law Enforcement to investigate this shooting. They have been on scene since early this morning. Since this is an ongoing investigation, additional details will be released when the investigation is concluded. The officers involved in the shooting have been placed on administrative leave pending the outcome of this investigation. That's really all the details that I can provide to you right now. It's still very much an active investigation. There are still interviews to be done. It's not like the Florida Department of Law Enforcement investigators call me every time they get an interview done. They will give me a complete investigation, and it's just going to take the time that it takes. We're hoping to have it done in a week or so, but there's no guarantees on that. Are there any questions I can answer?
Can you tell us about the victim and his criminal history?
The victim did have a criminal history, and I'm sorry, before I came in here, I meant to look and see what it was, but I don't have that information before you leave. I can, actually, Captain, can you check on that for me?
Yes, sir. Do we have any idea why he was shooting at the house?
We have somewhat of an idea from the complainant, but I want to kind of hold that until the investigation is complete. It is a family matter, so I also want to try to respect that.
Do you feel were your officers following protocol?
Right now, it's still an active investigation with FDLE. The appearance is that they were, but I don't want to prejudge one way or another. I'm anxious to hear what FDLE has to say about their independent investigation.
So to be clear, was Robinson shooting not just at the home, but shooting at officers, or through this whole process, just firing his gun?
Well, Robinson was definitely firing at the complainant's home. Once the shooting occurred in the park, again, I don't want to comment until I've had a chance to read FDLE's report. They're the ones that are conducting interviews with the officers involved in the shooting, other responding Palmetto officers, and MSO deputies that arrived just after the shooting. And I have not been privy to any of those interviews yet.
But there were shots exchanged.
There were shots in the cemetery, and this is where Mr. Robinson was struck by gunfire.
Do we know who fired first in the cemetery?
We don't, not at this time. And again, that's going to, I really need to see the results of the FDLE investigation before I can answer questions like that.
What can you tell us about these officers, as far as how long they've been with the department?
Well, the two officers involved, one of them has been with the department for nearly 5 years. One has been with the department for 5 months. He was just out of field training when this occurred.
Will you be releasing their names to us?
I will. In fact, I'll release them now. One of them is Corporal Angel Urachima, and the other one is Officer Madison Peters.
Just to be clear, it's your understanding that Robinson did fire at officers?
It is my understanding, but I don't know that for sure yet. That's why I need to see the results of the FDLE interviews. I've not spoken to any of the officers or deputies that arrived afterwards about this. That's why we have an arrangement with FDLE where they investigate these. There's no sense me asking questions too. So I'm going to be looking for that report when it's completed.
Where did the bullets hit the suspect?
The suspect was struck multiple times. What I understand, he was struck in the head and the face. He was struck in the arm, and he was struck in the torso area.
Is he he able to speak with investigators at all at the hospital or on the way to before dying?
It's my understanding that he was unconscious at the scene as they were trying to do life-saving measures, and he never regained consciousness.
Did you get a gun from him or find a weapon?
There was a weapon recovered at the scene of the shooting.
Chief, what are your feelings about all this? Obviously, thankfully your officers are okay, but a man is dead. What's your response to this incident?
Well, I am thankful that my officers are okay, and I'm heartbroken for the family of this individual that they've lost him. Police work sometimes is violent. Now, it's been many years since a Palmetto police officer was involved in any type of shooting. As a matter of fact, it goes back to 1981 since a Palmetto police officer was involved in a shooting. Our officers make a lot of arrests every year, and they do it with relatively little use of force. But it happened. It happened early this morning. We know that Mr. Robinson did have a firearm, and again, I think we all need to wait for FDLE to complete its investigation, and we can get some answers on what exactly happened in that park in the cemetery.
Chief, obviously it was early in the morning, but there was no video or anything like that, or was it?
No, we are searching for video along the route of the pursuit. One of the patrol cars had a vehicle cam in it. Unfortunately, that likely did not actually show the shooting. It would have showed the pursuit. So, here again, I have not seen that yet. That's definitely evidence that we have in our possession, but I haven't seen it yet. But as far as we know, there is no video of the actual shooting itself. And I think many of you have been to the scene where this happened, with the old Memphis cemetery, and there's no lighting in the cemetery. It's a kind of a desolate place.
Chief, how concerned are you about public perception in the environment that we have now? I already heard at the scene people saying, well, there you go, now cops, that they shoot right away and try to kill people. I mean, is that already playing in your mind, just the public perception of this?
Well, certainly it does. As a police chief, it was playing in my mind, months before this happened, hoping that it never would, involving my officers, but it has. And here again, I just hope that the community is patient and allows the impartial investigation to take place before we jump to conclusions. It's easy to say that the police overreacted, but we're also dealing with a very violent crime that had just occurred, and this is the individual that perpetrated it. So we need to be patient, and we need to let this be investigated.
Have you spoken with the officers since the shooting? How are they doing? What did you kind of feedback from their mental state did you get?
I spent some time with both the officers, and although I didn't discuss the incident, they're dealing with it as best they can. It's not an easy thing. Certainly, we have a family that's lost a loved one. Regardless of the circumstances, they've lost a loved one, and our heart and our prayers go out to them. But we also have, 2 police officers and in a police department that these 2 police officers are going to carry this with them for the rest of their lives. So I think they're doing as well as they can. I'm concerned about them. We have employee assistance programs in place. We have professionals in place that are going to work with the police officers moving forward to make sure that they have all the support that they need in professional services.
Chief, do you know how many times Robinson shot at his father's house?
No, I don't have that information. It was multiple times.
How long after from the first shooting, until police arrived on scene?
Looking at the CAD screens and the radio traffic, yeah, we located Mr. Robinson in the area within a couple of minutes of the shooting call being called in. As a matter of fact, officers really hadn't even arrived at the shooting call before he was found, and we tried to stop him. So probably this whole incident, played out in 20-25 minutes, if that.
Chief, was Mr. Robinson familiar to the police department? You had mentioned he does have a criminal record, but have you had other disturbances that you recall?
Nothing that, certainly we have people that we deal with quite frequently. He's certainly not one of them. I'm not saying that we haven't had any dealings with him in the past, whether it was on a call or, helping him as a complainant. But he was certainly nobody that comes to mind as somebody we deal with a lot.
Chief, could substance abuse have played a role in this, or would that be analyzed?
That is going to be analyzed. You know, there's going to be, that's part of the forensic investigation that's going to take place, and I really wouldn't want to comment one way or the other on that right now. You know, this is looking at his criminal history. He does have a criminal history now. You know, unfortunately, this is restricted CJIS information, so I can't get into details about it, but he did have a criminal history.
Was it violent criminal history?
There are some property crimes in here. I'm not saying things like robbery or assault, things like that.
Chief, did Mr. Robinson actually reside in Palmetto?
His address of record is in Palmetto, yes. Well, thank you. I will keep you all posted as much as I can as the investigation moves forward. I also have copies of what I read to you. It's kind of our press release here if you'd like them.
Do you have like a mugshot of him from other arrests you could email to us?
I don't have that. There may be something available from the sheriff's office. They're the ones they're the repository for mugshots, so.
Okay.